Hello, what is going on, guys? Hockey Guy 1 here. Welcome to my ranking of the Christopher Nolan movies. So, basically, Christopher Nolan is, one of, if not my favorite directors, and I do like every single one of his movies. So, just because one movie is lower than the other doesn't mean I think it's bad. I do like each and every one of his movies. It's just that I like some more than others. That's just a quick disclaimer. And, yeah, let's just get right into the list. Starting off at number 11, I got Insomnia. This movie is a great movie for sure, but I just don't really like it as much as his other movies. I mean, it's still great. It's got a really good story and really good acting and pretty much it's mostly good, but it does have its flaws. Something I do like it a bit less than his other movies, but nothing against it. It's still great. I do really enjoy watching it as it does have a really good story. Just completely, I really like the whole kind of concept of how they put in this concept of insomnia and this, and I do also really like the whole kind of investigation aspect of this, and as well as Robin Williams and Al Pacino do great jobs in their respective roles, and I do think that this movie does a really good job kind of with their characters, as well as just really keeping a consistent story. It's just that I don't really like it as much as other movies. At number 10, I got Following. So this movie is pretty good. I mean, it's far from his best movie, obviously, but, I still feel like it's a pretty good movie, as it did start off his directorial career, and it's definitely a very good movie for that, as even if it's not the best, I still really enjoyed the movie for what it is, and definitely does a pretty good job with it. I mean, it's definitely his shortest movie by far, and it is still a pretty good movie for what it is, as it is his directorial debut, and I feel like for that, he did a pretty good job, and I definitely respect this movie a lot for starting off his career. It's a pretty good movie, even if obviously it got better as his career went, but I still feel like it's pretty good, and I definitely do respect the fact that this started off as director's career, and it's just a really good movie for that. Coming in at number 9, I got Interstellar. This movie is a great movie for sure, but obviously, yeah, it's not his best movie, but it's still fantastic, which just tells you, how good of a director I think he is. I mean, this movie is definitely a solid 9 out of 10, and it's all the way down at number 9. That's how good I feel like he is as a director. And I do feel like, obviously, this movie does have a few pacing issues to me, which is kind of like what kind of brings it down a bit, but I still think it's a great movie, as I do really like this movie's story, and I just really find it to be interesting, and I do feel like I really get into this, and I do really think the cinematography and everything about it is pretty good. Like all the filmmaking merits, like the cinematography and the editing, I do feel like it's really good, and I do really like this movie. But obviously, it's not my favorite from him. At number 8, I got Batman Begins. Obviously, I do still really think this is an amazing movie. And I made a whole 20-minute review of it if you want more details on why, if this isn't good enough to you, if you want to go check that out. But, I do still really like this movie. I do feel like it is the weakest in the Dark Knight trilogy, but still a great movie, as I do really like the whole origin story of Batman and how, he's with the League of Shadows, gonna, learn how to get to fight and everything, and I do really like the whole Gotham City thing, where he's trying to stop Ra's al Ghul and Joel Scarecrow, and I really like how this works as an origin story, and I do really like this movie, and especially the action is really good, and I do really like how this movie is done with its filmmaking merits, and as well as the cinematography, lighting, and editing is mostly good, and I really like this movie for what it is, as I do feel like it is a great movie and a great start to the Dark Knight trilogy, despite it being the weakest. At number 7, I got The Dark Knight Rises. This movie is another fantastic movie. I mean, it's a great conclusion to the Dark Knight trilogy, and I do feel like it does do a pretty good job connecting to both the first and second movie, and I do really like the kind of way that they use Bay in this movie, and despite the fact that I wasn't really too big on like the twists in this, but I still really like this movie for what it is, and I do think that it does work for the most part, despite its very few issues, and I do think that it's a fantastic movie for what it is, and I do really in this movie, and I do feel like the tension is high for most of this movie, and I do feel like that ending just really kind of works as the kind of ending where it kind of lets the audience decide for what it is. But again, if you need more details, I did review this one as well, so you can go check that out if you'd like. And yeah, I still think it's a fantastic movie and a great conclusion to the Dark Knight trilogy. That's about it. Number 6, I got The Prestige. This movie is really good, and honestly, we're getting into the masterpiece territories. I mean, I really like The Prestige. I mean, the movie really works, and it's about every way. In the story, it's very consistent, and it really works. And I do really like the whole concept of these two magicians, and so I really like Christian Bale in his role. He does a great job in his role, and as well as Hugh Jackman. And I do feel like just the main characters are really well developed, and I do feel like they do a good job kind of giving them character, and I do especially like every character in this movie, and I especially like all the kind of filmmaking merits of like cinematography and the editing as well, and I do really like this movie. It does really work in every way, and I just really get into it, and it's just a really good movie to watch. And number 5, I got his newest movie, Tenet. I really like this movie, and I do really feel like, obviously this is a movie you have to pay attention to fully understand. I mean, like I said in my review, I do feel like that this movie is really good, and I do really like the whole concept of this movie, of the whole algorithm kind of stuff, and as well as just how you kind of have to try and there's a lot to this movie, and I do really like how they kind of like put together all these things and just create a consistent story, and just it really works for the movie. And I do really like the protagonists as well as Neil, who are both like very interesting characters, and I do really like how this movie was, and I do really think this movie works for this type of movie that it is, and it's definitely just a really good movie, and it's like, there's other movies that I'm going to say before this, it is a masterpiece, and I do really like this whole husband. I mean, so far, it's obviously the best movie of 2020, because I think there are many that I've seen, and I do feel like just the acting in this movie was really good, and just everything about this movie I just really liked, and I really engaged in this movie because I just really got into it, because I just really found this concept to be interesting. And number 4, I got Memento. So this movie is a masterpiece. Well, following was his first movie, I do feel like this movie is the one that kind of like put him on the map as kind of like in that conversation as one of the best directors. I mean, this movie just really works for the style of what he chose for this movie, and it's definitely a very creative concept that it is, which is why I really like his movies. I mean, he always chooses creative concepts, and he really gets you kind of like invested into his movies. And this movie is definitely no exception. And I do really like the story of this movie, and just how much they kind of like get you into this, and especially like how this kind of story was, and just the whole concept of it, as well as just the whole style that he chose. And I do feel like it's another movie like kind of like Tenet, where you have to like really pay attention to really understand, and it just helps you get more invested into the movie. And I do really like each and everything about this movie, and I definitely feel like that it's definitely one of the best movies for sure, obviously, and it does really work for its own concept, and just I really like the characters, and just the cinematography, and just how it's used is great, and I do think that they did a great job with this movie. Number three, I got Dunkirk. As a guy that's kind of into World War II and kind of events, this movie does really suit me, and I do really like this movie. I mean, I do feel like it just really gets you more into the event of like the whole Battle of Dunkirk and like them getting across the English Channel kind of thing. It really showed what it took just for some of the soldiers just to get across the English Channel and away from Dunkirk, and it does really work for this movie, and I do really get interested in this kind of thing, even if it's not fully based on the real Battle of Dunkirk, and I do really like this movie for what it is. It definitely does really get you into this movie, and I do really find it interesting, and it works for this movie, and especially like the cinematography, this movie is really good, and for sure, it is definitely one of my favorite war movies of the last decade. And number two, I got Inception. This movie is just a masterpiece. I mean, everything about this really works. I mean, it's a movie just that really works. I mean, I really like how they bring the concept of Inception to this, where it's like a dream inside of a dream inside of a dream. It really works for this movie, and it's just really, honestly, the concept of Inception just is just really interesting. I mean, it's a bit of a different kind of concept, and I do really like the concept. I mean, it really is an interesting concept. I mean, just the whole dream inside of a dream inside of a dream thing. I mean, it definitely just really works, especially like with the whole our main character, Cobb, and essentially is really interesting just how they end up doing it, like his whole wife and kids and everything, and definitely does. It's a really interesting concept, and I like the way they used it in this movie, and it's just is a really complete story, and just really works for me, and especially like Leonardo DiCaprio in this movie did a fantastic job, and just this whole kind of cinematography of this movie is really good, and especially like the climax, and the climax is just really good, and it's really kind of like race against time kind of in a climax, and I do really like how they end up doing that, especially, and it just really works for this movie, and it keeps you really invested into it, which is why this movie is my second favorite Christopher Nolan movie, and honestly, it's probably just outside of my top 30 of all time. At number one, obviously, y'all knew it, it's The Dark Knight. I mean, this movie is obviously my favorite movie of all time, and it's just it works in just about every single way, and pretty much it just really gets in the movie. I mean, obviously, as a huge fan, that's obviously the best Batman movie, and it's obviously my favorite movie of all time, and it just really works for this movie. It's not just as a sequel to Batman Begins, but as a movie itself, it just really works in just about every single way, and I just really like this movie a lot, and just obviously, I mean, I won't go into too much details. I have a review of this, and I've mentioned it a lot in my channel. So, yeah, it's just a masterpiece, and it's obviously my favorite movie of all time. That was my ranking of Christopher Nolan's movies. What is your ranking of Christopher Nolan's movies? Tell me in the comments below. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.